5 signs that showed Charlie Munger, who died on November 28, 2023, a month short of a 100, knew he was dying 2 weeks earlier. Sign 1. Many people who sense that the end is near may feel like being social and may want to connect with people. In countless interviews with Becky Quick or other journalists, Charlie Munger never spoke about the beautiful weather and the surrounding. This is the first.
Look, this is the middle of November. We're in Southern California. Look at it.
Yeah, this is pretty nice.
Yes, and of course, I noticed that it was like that. And it wasn't like that in Omaha at the time I was at Caltech. And it was the middle of the winter, and it was like this. And so I naturally thought, this is better.
Yes, I understand why you moved permanently.
Yeah, well, you understand why the whole nation moved.
Right.
It moved south and west is what it moved.
It continues to do so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sign 2A's Charlie Munger was approaching his first century. He must have thought about the milestone. He mistakenly, or otherwise, used the word cemetery instead of century.
So, Charlie, you were born on the first day of 1924. You have seen a century of history. And I wonder, do you ever stop?
Not only that, I lived in the aftermath of a previous century of history. In fact, you could argue that about 90% of the progress of man has happened in civilization has occurred in the last 2 centuries. And that I lived in the immediate aftermath of one. And it was a very important cemetery, that cemetery that ended when I was born. Because in that century, we figured out so very, very much that was quite important as a start. If you stop to think about the technical revolution, it happened in that century. That's when they opened all these coal mines and created all these steam engines and so on. And so it was just, and of course that's what brought the economic system up. So man had enough leisure, had enough time to think when he wasn't just getting enough food to eat. And so it was an amazing time to be born, and to be born in the place in that century where all the growth was going to occur.
The United States.
Sign 3. As death nears, one may spend time thinking about people who have passed on. Memories from a distant past gets mixed with recent past. Charlie Munger mentioned for the first time his inseparable playmate Madeline Duffy, who died when she and Charlie Munger were both 4, some 95 years ago.
And I turned to the other side of me, lived Madeline Duffy, my great female playmate. And Madeline and I were just inseparable, living side by side. And Madeline Duffy and I were playing with this little dog that was a stranger to us when we were very young. But I can remember her and the dog, so we must have been nearly 4 years old. Or 4 years old, more or less. And that dog was inches away from my cheek, but it bit her cheek instead of mine.
Oh,
and they didn't quite get the fast tourist treatment in time. They got to it, but it was too late, and she died after terrible trauma. And she was a very outstanding little girl who might have grown up to be a Becky Quick if the world had been different. But she never grew up.
Sign 4. Increase in general weakness is common towards end of life. Charlie Munger knew of his impending death, saying that he was so old and weak compared to when he was 96. He even gave up his lifelong dream of catching a 200-pound tuna, a dream he never gave up at 96.
Is there anything left on your bucket list, anything you'd like to do?
Well, that's an interesting question. I am so old and weak compared to what I was when I was 96 that I no longer want to catch a 200-pound tuna. It's just too goddamn much work. To get it in takes too much physical strength. So I don't know why I would have paid any amount to catch a 200-pound tuna. when I was younger. I never caught one. And now if given the opportunity, I would just decline going. I won't even go out after them. There are things you give up with time.
Sign 5. Finally, on his approach to life by writing the obituary first and then living accordingly, he said it makes no difference if people listen or otherwise, as he will be dead.
Charlie, Warren Buffett told me that a long, long time ago. You told him he should live his life. He should write his obituary the way he wants it written and then live his life accordingly.
Yeah, sure.
I assume you've done the same thing for yourself.
Well, no, I've written my obituary the way I've lived my life, and if people want to pay attention to it, it's all right with me. And if they want to ignore it, that's okay with me too. I'll be dead, but what difference will it make?